Happy Thursday, everyone. Today, we have three main topics that we have to get into. First, you already know that I was going to talk about the UK news host who had to issue a public apology to Doria Ragland. I have a lot of thoughts about that. As a matter of fact, it was supposed to be its own video. However, my computer crashed, which was probably for the best because that was more of a rant. So we're going to try again today with a much more calm and cool head. We'll see how I do. Give me a grade, 1 to 10. How calm did I stay today? Let me know at the end. Then we also have to talk about Prince Harry and Nacho in Aspen. And lastly, we've got to talk about the wedding date. No, not Harry and Meghan's wedding date per se, but the wedding date, a new rom-com executive produced by Harry and Meghan. We've got to get into a lot today, so let's get started. Thank you so much for clicking on my video, and if you're returning, welcome back to my channel. Today, we have three main Sussex-related topics to dig into, but as always, before we do, if you haven't already, please don't forget to go ahead and like this video, subscribe to the channel, and feel free to share so that more people can find us. First, we have to open up with discussing Carol Malone's public apology to the queen that is Doria Ragland. Now, before we get into that, I have to first say this is a two-parter topic. And I do feel like maybe this should have been its own video, but since it's so close to the holidays, I definitely want to do something that's a little bit friendlier. So I want to end on a high note. So that's why we are doing three topics in one today. Also, I haven't seen y'all for most of the week, so I wanted to get in as much conversation and dialogue as I could today. First, Carol Malone has to issue a public apology. But before we can get to her apology, we have to get into the what she did. The what of it is that she falsely and publicly proclaimed on a major international news network that Doria Ragland had been in prison. You heard me correctly. Something that is easily proven incorrect, something that can be easily validated or invalidated, not just for Carol Malone, but for any old body, because Google is free. And Carol Malone's excuse was that she saw it on the internet. This is a real excuse coming from an adult human being who has a job in media, who is allowed and gets to sit in front of cameras that are on air and hot live microphones. This woman said with her whole saggy chest that she saw it on the internet and was perpetuating it as fact. And then to make matters worse, when she was corrected or even an interjection when someone said, I wasn't aware that that was the case. I didn't know that to be true. And I have never heard that before. She doubled and tripled down. She used her buck brown teeth to perpetuate more lies against the Sussexes and those in the Sussex family. And something has to be done. We can't keep accepting these ridiculous haphazard apologies and yeah, I'm sorry for saying the thing. It was an error. It was misunderstanding, misrepresentation, blah, blah. Those things are not true. And something that really frustrates me is when people are asked to own what they've done and asked to apologize and to repent, to change behavior and course correct, the first non-accountable people will do is deflect to something lesser. They'll deflect to, instead of saying, well, I made a mistake, which that wasn't a mistake, that was intentional. But instead of saying, I will own it. I don't like this person, so I took it out on her mother. That was wrong. I should have self-corrected. I need to check myself and my own bias, and I should never allow my personal bias to come to work with me. That is something on a character level that I need to work on, but I apologize for dragging not only Doria Ragland through the mud, not only insulting her and everyone who cares about her, but also dragging my co-hosts, my network, my agent, my manager, and anyone who's affiliated with me as a person or me in my career. I apologize to everyone because I selfishly put everyone here in jeopardy. She should have owned it. But did she do that? No. She continued to hold her accountability and her extremely high frazzled hair and hold on to it with all her might and give us this small modicum of penance and pretend as if it was just a misunderstanding. There is no way in the age of the internet and in the age of information that you can be so incorrectly misinformed when you have the access to the types of resources that you have the access to. Now, for myself, I am a regular, degular, schmegular human being with no ties to the media. I have a microphone that hooks up to my personal computer. I edit my videos myself. I also have someone who helps me with those kinds of things. And then I post to YouTube, 100% self-involved with a little bit of integration here and there. I do not have a team of producers. I do not have a network that provides me with fact checkers. I do not have an executive producer. I do not have equally as resourced and informed co-hosts. I do not have the types of resources that it would take to fact check every single thing I have on the level that Carol Malone has, and I still don't make mistakes like that. You said it with your whole chest that Doria Ragland had been in prison. I hope she sues your hair off your head. And partially that is a selfish desire because I genuinely hope she sues the hair off your head and the wigs off your wig stand so that she can burn them. I'm sick of seeing them. I'm tired of seeing you wear them. I'm tired of seeing you pull them out from wherever you have them and flopping them on your head, looking like a clown so that you can get on the air and say BS like this. Someone do us a service and sue her for those wigs, if for nothing else, to keep the UK warm in the winter. But that's beside the point. So we already have this conversation going on about how she was completely out of line and disrespecting and absolutely lying on Doria Ragland. But in the middle of her making this claim, because her statement was, let me make sure I read it verbatim because I don't want to be like her and get it wrong. But I want to read what she said verbatim. She goes on to say, quote, so where's her compassion? Speaking of Meghan. So where's Meghan's compassion for her father, who actually brought her up, who paid for her private education while her mother was in jail, who took huge care of her? Ugh, for her to have been in media for so long, her grammar is also very awful. And she's not seen him in the latter years. Not just seen him, she's like totally snubbed him, Thomas Malone incorrectly said in a video clip shared to X. She went on to say, well, actually, her fellow presenter asked her, when was that mom in jail? Which hold on. The dehumanization of Doria Ragland in this conversation in general is also just jumping off the page. This is microaggressive at best, or at least microaggressive. But in my opinion, this is outright racist. Doria Ragland is a human being. She is a woman. She is a woman that you are fully aware of that exists. You know who she's tied to. It wouldn't have taken anything for them to say, when was her mother in jail or her mom in jail, or when was Doria in jail? To ask that question and say, when was that mom in jail? It almost feels like objectification in some way. It's so dehumanizing. Just listen to the tone and the undercurrent of disrespect that is just clearly present throughout this entire conversation. The entire staff needs an overhaul. But that's not the point of this. While that is really screwed up, the way he interjected and the way he spoke of Doria in that way, let's zoom out a bit and reflect on what he's actually asking. When was her mother in jail? There was an opportunity there for Carol Malone to correct herself, or at least pause and say, I don't know if that's true. That's something that I read. Can you correct that, or can you confirm? There was a moment there in live conversation. While that should have never met an conversation being on air, that should have never met their broadcast until it was fact checked. Regardless, if it comes up, there was a moment there that could have checked her in the moment where she could have said, you know what, actually, I saw that on the internet. Is that not true? So that's how you know none of this was in good faith. This was intentional. Pause there. So he asks her, when was the mom in jail? She responds with this, doubles down. Years ago. He seemed confused when she responded this way. So she continued and said, do you want me to give you the precise date and time? Because I haven't gotten that. So not only did she double down, she got defensive. So then he responded back. Again, here's a third opportunity for her to pause and say, I could be incorrect. Let me be clear. That's something I read, and that's something that I believe to be true. There was a moment here, if she were operating in good faith and were simply misinformed, there was a moment where this could have met the criteria for being a simple error. That moment passed the moment she doubled down. But then she went on to triple down, because at that point, her fellow presenter went on to say, I never heard that before. He is giving you ample opportunities to protect the network and your own career interests by correcting this, or at least offering some doubt, admitting there is doubt to be had. So here's the part that really drives me nuts. When this created the outrage it quite fairly should have created, She then wants to come out and apologize, but she did not apologize because she genuinely wanted to correct the narrative or that she felt bad or that she knew that this was bad for her career. She did not correct the narrative because she should have. Because in some part of her character outweighed her disdain or bias against Doria. And she said, well, you know what, actually, let me do the right thing here. Regardless of how I feel, let me do what is right, what is objectively right. No, the reason she corrected the narrative is because her ass didn't want to get sued. In which case, I hope she still gets sued. Because that had to have created pain and suffering for a number of people, actually. Before we move on to the apology, as well as the Duchess of Sussex's statement, I want to point this out too. Incarcerated people and previously and formerly incarcerated people, whether they were there justly or if they were there incorrectly, because there are a large amount of people who have been wrongfully incarcerated, at least here in the US. There's a whole podcast dedicated to it, hosted by Jason Flum, that's called Wrongful Conviction, that breaks down some of the most famous and egregious wrongful convictions in U.S. history, where these people have literally spent several lifetimes in jail, where they miss time with grandkids and great-grandkids over false identification, over forced confessions, over junk science. It is insane. And until I started listening to that podcast and gotten involved with the Innocence Project, I had no idea. And the Innocence Project was actually referenced in Live to Lead, the show that was produced by Archewell Productions for Netflix, and Harry and Meghan helped to host it, or they did host it, excuse me. The Innocence Project was referenced several times because one of the attorneys that they featured for an episode, he works with the Innocence Project, and he worked to free wrongfully convicted people, and they featured his story. And I actually have been working with the Innocence Project, or donating to the Innocence Project and helping to fundraise in any way I can, and listening to the Wrongful Conviction podcast for years before Live to Lead. And so when I saw them featured on Live to Lead, I was so proud of everyone involved for featuring them. And the reason I'm pointing that out here, because it is relevant to this story, having had that kind of exposure to the Innocence Project, having that exposure to the Wrongful Conviction podcast, and all of those people sharing their stories, as well as people who were justifiably incarcerated. I won't weigh in on the sentences because the sentences are vastly disproportionate regarding race, age, and location, but that's another conversation. But people who have been incarcerated deal with so much stigma. And even having been incarcerated and exonerated, meaning your record is expunged of it, meaning you no longer have to identify as someone who's been incarcerated, you have gotten some form of retribution, etc. When you have been exonerated, just Googling a person's name will bring up that they were even in proximity to a crime. That carries a stigma. Being incarcerated carries layers of stigma, layers of disadvantages, and layers of unfair, unjust treatment. And we won't even get into the treatment behind the walls when you are incarcerated, which is its own outrageous conversation to have. These people are already dealing with a lot. So in my opinion, to intentionally deploy a stigma like that, knowing that it exists, and to continue to perpetuate the negativity associated with people who have been incarcerated, something that they are actively fighting against, to then not only unfairly drag them into this conversation on an international level, but then to associate them with Doria Ragland, who's also done nothing wrong and has never even been incarcerated to begin with. You are now, in my opinion, unfairly perpetuating harmful stereotypes against two separate entities, two separate parties, two separate demographics of people, based on your own personal racist bias. This is how harm is continuing. This is how harm is done. This is how those little innocuous statements or little oopsie daisies, they actually have real world impact. They actually have real world consequences. Something that you are clearly not factoring in when I hope Doria Ragland is speaking to an attorney as we speak. Because something should absolutely be done about that. And it's not enough to have an apology, especially a forced apology. It doesn't correct the narrative. All it does is add to the story. Because if you want to correct the narrative, you want to know what you could do is be quite honest about why you said what you said, so that people are fully aware of what they're dealing with. A liar. Not a person who had an oopsie daisy. You outright lied on that woman. And you dragged a group of people who already have enough hardship to begin with, hardship you can't even imagine, who are already dealing with a lot. You dragged them into an international conversation that none of them belonged in. As a matter of fact, the conversation you were having in general was in bad faith. You in and of yourself are the problem. And if I were your agent, if I were your manager, if I were your network, if I were your colleagues, I wouldn't want nothing to do with you. You couldn't even get an invitation to a cocktail party if it were me. I wouldn't want anything to do with you. First of all, I wouldn't want anything to do with you in general because you look like you smell like hairspray. You look like you smell like burned cigarette ashes. You look like you're not a good time to be around in general. And that is an opinion. You want to know what I didn't just do? I didn't say, I know for a fact that Carol Malone smells like burned cigarette ashes. I know that Carol Malone spits tobacco. I know that Carol Malone uses a pound of hairspray every freaking day. I don't say any of those things because I don't know them to be true. But what I did say is, in my opinion, this is what Carol Malone looks like. Did I slander you? No. Did I insult you? Yes. Two different things. And I don't have the resources nor the career that you have. And I still know the difference. And I still protected you as a human being by not perpetuating my opinion as fact. See how easy it is to be considerate? And you couldn't even do that over something as egregious as outright lying and saying that someone was in jail, in prison. And not only that, but you have no excuse for perpetuating harmful lies at this point regarding the Sussexes. They put it all on video and in book form that you undoubtedly read and watched because you're obsessed. I know for a fact you know exactly how Harry and Meghan both came up individually because they detailed it in Harry and Meghan, the docuseries. I know that you know all about their love story. I know you know all about their fallout with the royal family. I know you know all about what has happened since they stepped back in 2020. I know you know every in and out regarding Harry and Meghan. And the reason you know it isn't because you're obsessed as a fan. You're obsessed as a hater because you want to find different ways, avenues, and caveats that you can use to try to perpetuate against them. And you went a step too far when it came to Meghan's mom. You've been going a step too far. Let's also circle back to that. You've been going a step too far. The reason she made this egregious mistake is because those small, minor, what people assume are very minimal mistakes are not being corrected along the way. It doesn't start with Jeremy Clarkson making a sexually obsessed tirade against Meghan in a public space. It doesn't start with Dan Wooten creating a show centered completely around hating Harry and Meghan and perpetuating lies. It doesn't start with Piers Morgan spitting through his gnarled brown teeth about how he could have had a date with Meghan. And then when he's called out on the outright lie, he can't handle the heat that he undoubtedly has been directing towards Meghan since she's been in the public space as a royal. He couldn't handle it. He walked away. It doesn't start with that type of egregious activity. It starts with the little comments here and there. Little bitty moments, little gestures, little underhanded comments, little underhanded bad faith conversations with the undercurrent of disrespect prevalent that no one stops and says, hey, this is leaning out of objectivity. This is more biased. This is more personal. You are representing GB News. You are representing Newsnight. You are representing our entity, the BBC, what have you, with your personal opinion at the forefront. I'm going to need you to pull it back on the mic. I'm going to need you to pull it back in front of the camera. If for no other reason outside of you shouldn't do it because it's wrong, for no other reason, you are creating a liability. And this is becoming an escalated situation where you are now not only harboring your own personal bias and racism at someone and using your company to do so, your company resources to do so. You're using the microphone that reaches millions of people to harbor resentment and hatred towards someone for no reason. That in and of itself should warrant a trip to the loony bin. But then sidebar, you're doing so and you're using the minds and the hearts and the understanding of the people who watch this network to brainwash them against this woman. And you are perpetuating hate and extremism against her and her family. You are becoming an egregious asset of terrorism, in my opinion. And if it had been stopped when the issues were minor infractions, if it had been called out when it was just a bias, had it been called out when there was just an undercurrent of disrespect, had it been called out when there were very extremely hypocritical coverage between Meghan and Kate, if it had been called out by the right parties or the people who are sitting at those boardroom tables who are behind the curtain and behind the camera, had it been called out and said, hey, I don't have to like her to know that what you're doing is wrong. But there is still no reason to not like her. So why don't we just report on things as they are? Why don't we just discuss the facts and the stories as they continue to unfold, like an actual media organization? Had it been called out in the beginning, it wouldn't have gotten to the point where you have created such a liability for your network that you might actually be sued. Not only will you likely be out of a job, but you will likely be writing a fat check should Doria decide to take this to court. And my God, I hope she does. My God, I hope she does. I hope there are more consequences underway for every one of you who choose to use your company resources to spew hatred and egregious racism. But that's not the point. Let's get to her whack apology, y'all. So here it is on December 15th. She issued an apology. And y'all, okay, listen, I'm going to get through the apology without any opinion because I don't have to give my opinion. The opinion I had Meghan's spokesperson literally just said, here, hold up a microphone. I got this. I don't need you. I got this. And they handled it so beautifully. So let's get into Carol's weak ass apology. Carol Malone began, quote, in an episode of Britain's Newsroom on Thursday, I stated that Thomas Markle, the Duchess of Sussex's father, brought Meghan up while her mother, Doria Ragland, was in prison. I believe this to be the case based on what I now understand to be misinformation I had seen online. That sounds like a person who is now senile. I was questioned about the validity of this claim during the broadcast, and I repeated this belief, which I now understand to be false. You knew it was false when you said it, Big Tooth. You knew it was false from the very beginning. She went on to say, this was a genuine error. I accept what I have been told on behalf of Miss Ragland, that she raised her daughter and that she has never been in prison or jail. I apologize sincerely to Miss Ragland and her family for any pain my comments may have caused, and I'm happy to set the record straight. She caused me pain by that because that felt racist. That felt racist. I felt triggered. Let me know. Did that also cause pain and suffering for y'all as well? Because I definitely felt pain and suffering. Let's continue. Andrew Pierce, her co-anchor, went on to say, can I just say I'm up for a GB News because I was on the program that day. We all wish to apologize to Miss Ragland for the error, and we are happy to correct the record. While I appreciate him also weighing in, I think it's things like that that help to minimize the impact of what she actually did and the behavior she actually displayed. It wasn't just an error or a misunderstanding or what have you. It was an outright lie. And when you fail to call a thing, you minimize the behavior and you minimize the impact, and you do that in order to shield yourself from the extent of the consequences you should actually face. It's manipulative. It's just another layer of betrayal and misbehavior, in my opinion, associated with your initial egregious act. But let's continue. The Duchess of Sussex's spokesperson had something to say. In a statement to People, a spokesperson for the Duchess of Sussex said, broadcasters have a responsibility to inform, not inflame. This lie was conclusively debunked more than 2 years ago, yet it continues to be recycled by irresponsible commentators, causing recurring harm. Miss Ragland proudly raised her daughter and has never been in prison. GB News did not apologize voluntarily, but only to escape a defamation lawsuit, and it speaks volumes that GB News removed any trace of that apology within 24 hours of making it. A spokesperson for GB News declined to comment when reached out to by People. Now, so this is what I want to say. Everything about this statement makes me so happy. First of all, I love that they opened it up with what the media and commentators are responsible for, what the ethics of this situation actually is, or the ethics violation of this situation actually is. Broadcasters have a responsibility to inform, not inflame. Boom. Right there. Because at what point do we start holding the entities themselves responsible for putting these psychopaths in front of us on our screens and on our microphones and our headphones, etc., and then we hold the real people in charge accountable? Because these are individual psychopaths who happen to have a career in media. And it seemed like it took the right trigger point for them to all go completely insane. So at what point do the people behind the camera say, this is a liability, these people are crazy, and we should not be contributing to this massive global attack on one person? We shouldn't be contributing to hatred in general, but this has exceeded far beyond what we've ever seen. When do we stop? When do we pull back? When do we start hiring people who will do the job with some respect and honor and at least with ethics? At what point do we do that? I also want to point out this part. This lie was conclusively debunked more than 2 years ago. Pause right there. Yes, this is true, but the lie should have never began to begin with. So it just feels like repeated violations of Doria Ragland and Meghan and Harry. It just feels like it's repetitive and it's unfair, and it doesn't seem like it's going to cease anytime soon. But I also want to point out, by creating Harry and Meghan the docuseries, they created a record of not only the situation with the royal family and the media, but they created their love story and they put it in a place where it can never be changed or altered, because we've all seen it. It has been discussed at length from the rooter to the tutor, up, down, in, out, sideways, and everywhere else. We have seen, we have discussed, we have dissected that documentary. We know every word, pause, punctuation in it. So for no other reason, regardless of Carol Malone's resources, regardless of her access, regardless of her storied career, if you can call it that, regardless of her colleagues, the people she has access to, on a basic level, she had access to simply debunk this by simply opening Netflix. She had the power to go into her bedroom or her office or wherever her bookshelf is and pull out Spare, thumb through it and say, did he mention Doria ever being in prison? No. And I feel like with the amount of detail that Prince Harry shared in that story about himself and about Meghan and how they met and how they integrated their family and how they built their life, at some point, if her mother had been in prison, he would have said something about it. The man gave us Todger tales, for goodness sake. He would have said something about prison. So there were no excuses for her to not only perpetuate this lie, but we should not let her off the hook by pretending it was anything other than an outright, intentional, overt, egregious racist attack, dependent upon extremely harmful stereotypes that impact and harm several demographics of people internationally. She did something extremely egregious, and I genuinely hope Doria Ragland is pursuing options right now. That's beside the point. The last line of this, I really appreciate that the spokesperson says, GB News did not apologize voluntarily. Call it out and call a thing a thing. They only did so to escape a defamation lawsuit, and it speaks volumes that GB News removed any trace of that apology within 24 hours of making it. They didn't give a damn about the harm caused. They behaved callously and carelessly and negligently. But above all else, they were intentionally causing harm based on racism and racist stereotypes. There is a lot to dissect here. It's not as simple, they don't like Meghan, so they attacked her mom, which in and of itself is its own egregious act. But the fact that they did so on an international news station or platform and attacked that woman while also attacking other people to do so, there is no excuse for it. And even Andrew Pierce wanting to hop in and say, and I just want to say, we want to apologize for any pain caused. I feel like all of it is so minimizing and dismissive and extremely unfair. Not only did you already harm this woman, but you couldn't even offer a thoughtful and honest apology, repentance, and accountability. Anyway, I'm really proud of Meghan and her spokesperson and her mom for handling this with such dignity. And I love that Meghan does not mince words. She says exactly how she feels. She does not give you the perfect PR answer. She gives you the perfectly honest answer. And in doing so, she helps to raise the standard by how media behaves. When we lean into, and I'm not a celebrity, so I can't really speak as a person who's part of it, but I mean as a society, when we lean into the habit of perfect PR responses to these things and turning the other cheek and creating this, oh, it's okay, we didn't mean to, blah, blah. We get it. When you do that, you only lay the groundwork for the person behind you to experience the same damn thing. If we continue to call things out and we are honest about it, i.e., this is not what did Meghan say? She called it the Daily Fail. Do y'all remember that when she issued her first public statement after she beat the Daily Mail to dust in court, and she outright called them the Daily Fail? That's when I knew Mama has a funny bone, even when things are serious. But also, yes, call a thing a thing. This was not an error. This was not a misunderstanding. This was not misrepresentation. This was an outright lie and an egregious public attack on a woman for no reason. And you tried to send your international extremist hounds against this Black woman. That feels pretty racist to me. Anyway, I'm so happy that the Duchess of Sussex's statement was the last statement in regards to this situation. I don't feel like anything more needs to be said. I feel like the next thing that needs to happen is we need to see Carol Malone to pay the price for this, as well as anybody else who perpetuated this type of lie and egregious behavior towards Meghan and her mom. I think true justice should be served. What do y'all think? Let me know in the comment section below. Okay, y'all. So Prince Harry is currently in Aspen, but that has never stopped Meghan from showing love to him when he is afar or domestic or what have you. She is going to celebrate her man using social media, and she did just that. And she sent the world into a little tizzy. So she updated her Instagram stories, sharing a little love to her man. We're going to get into why he is in Aspen and who he's in Aspen with. But first I have to ask, did you guys see the Instagram post? I thought it was so cute. So I'm going to continue. It says, according to Aspen Snow Polo's Instagram page, Prince Harry competed on the Aspen Valley team. Meanwhile, his friend and former professional polo player Nacho joined the St. Regis team alongside sons Artemo and Hilario. Meghan remained home with her children, Prince Archie and Princess Lilibet, as they gear up to celebrate Christmas at home in Montecito, California, according to Hello. I don't know if those Hello reports are true, but more than likely, because that's where they live and they celebrate the holidays. But anyway, y'all know how they do. I just ignore them. But anyway, she uploaded her Instagram stories and it says, "Oh, hello there." And it's a picture of Prince Harry looking amazing in his Aspen Valley jersey and helmet on his horse. It says the snow polo event drew some famous faces last year, including Anna Kendrick, Nikki Hilton, Billy Lord, and Riley Keough. Prince Harry is known to saddle up for charity matches throughout the years, even competing against his brother, Prince William, before stepping back from his royal role in 2020. Y'all, they have to find some place to put it in every article. I have stopped complaining about it. They're getting new and inventive and creative. They have to say stepping back in 2020, no matter what. The fact that we're about to enter 2026 is of no consequence to them. So just let them cook. Last year, he rode at the Royal Salute Polo Challenge in Florida, where Meghan supported her husband, and Netflix cameras captured content for their documentary series Polo, which premiered in 2024. The outing wasn't the Duke of Sussex and Figueroa's first time taking the polo field in Aspen. Harry and his friend previously competed together there in the Centabali Polo Cup at the Aspen Valley Polo Club in August of 2022. So I saw the photo. I had no idea about this. I've been kind of out of the loop anyway. So this was really nice to see that he's having such an amazing winter in December. But also, I always love to see when Harry and Nacho team up again to play polo. As a matter of fact, I think I'm going to do a little rewatch of Polo, their show on Netflix this weekend. This has kind of put me back in the mood to get caught up on my players, and I hope we get a season 2. Fingers crossed. So I'm going to scoot on over to Hello magazine, who has the story regarding Harry and Nacho skiing in Aspen. So clearly he is having a really good time, and it's great that he's getting some friendship time. Or actually, can I just say, some brother time. The Hello magazine article goes on to say, the Duke of Sussex hit the slopes as he enjoyed a boys' ski trip to Aspen, Colorado with close friend and polo player Nacho Figueras. Prince Harry looked relaxed as he and Nacho chatted before taking the mountains. The pair were dressed ready for action, with the Duke wearing a mauve ski jacket and a blue contrasting zip and black ski pants with matching boots. Okay, Harry. While the father of two sported a dark blue helmet and sunglasses, his trademark beard was on display. Not trademark. Okay, now. Meanwhile, Nacho, who is married to Argentine photographer Delfina Blaquier, donned a navy blue puffer jacket and matching trousers. A source tells Hello. Take it with a grain of salt, y'all. Prince Harry was with Nacho for about 4 hours on the mountain. The pair spent the day skiing and enjoyed lunch together at one of the restaurants at the resort. Harry seemed happy and was also joined by a number of male friends on the slopes. Now, this is the part about being a celebrity. I know they get on their nerves because I just want to hang out with my friends. And you're telling people what color my clothes are. I also want to pause and say, I'm looking at Harry's jacket. They called it mauve, so it could be mauve. This could be a resolution thing or a me thing. That just looks more plum or purple. Anyway, y'all let me know. Does that look mauve to y'all? Hello understands that Harry's wife Meghan, like we don't know her any other kind of way. Hello magazine. Okay, whatever, y'all. I'm not going to let y'all bring my mood down. Hello magazine understands that Prince Harry's wife, Meghan, the Duchess of Sussex, and their 2 children, Prince Archie and Princess Lilibet Diana, did not join him on the private trip, but the family are set to spend Christmas at home in Montecito. Okay, listen, it could be me and I could be sensitive. So I'm pretty sure this is a me thing. When it points out that Harry and Meghan that Meghan and the children did not join Harry and Nacho and their friends for the ski trip, why did they say they did not join him on the private ski trip as if she were barred from joining? It sounds like it's a boys' trip. Why would she want to go? And I'm pretty sure the kids' school hasn't let out, or if not, their Christmas traditions have probably already begun. So this probably wasn't something she wanted to go to. Like, the people who write these kinds of articles, I really am curious. Do you know married people in real life? Are you married? Do you know married? There are times where you just don't want to travel with your partner because where they're going is something that is for them and the group that they're going with. And you get to stay home and light candles and watch Christmas movies that they probably don't want to watch. The real cheesy ones from Hallmark that you just can't wait to sink your teeth into. You know what's going to happen, but you got to see it every year annually on the dot. And you get to do that in the peace of your own home. You get to cook your little dinner, the things that he hates. You finally get to cook those things. It's fun for everybody. And then he comes back, you get to celebrate his return and you guys get to rejoin the whole family thing. It doesn't have to be, it's on the private trip. She's not barred. She just didn't go. It sounds like it was a boys' trip, which is totally normal and healthy, and I actually think should happen so that people can enjoy their lives. Marriage doesn't stop your friendships. Anyway, sorry. The Duke's love of skiing stems back to his childhood when he would holiday with his parents, then Prince Charles and Diana, Princess of Wales, in the Swiss resort of Closters. Harry's already introduced his young family to the sport, with the Sussexes taking Archie and Lilibet to Powder Mountain Ski Resort in Utah in February of 2024. Oh, so anyway, we got a lot of photos of Harry and Nacho. They both, honestly, these look like professional photos. They both look great. They look like they're having a wonderful time, and it's great to hear that they had so much fun. Good for them. Anyway, y'all get back to me on this. Is Harry's jacket mauve or plum? It could be a me thing, so y'all let me know. But I'm glad they're having a good time. And again, just one more time, Hello Magazine, it is totally fine for married people to still enjoy time with their friends. Okay, that's all. All right, y'all, here is our last topic. Have you heard of the wedding date? Now, when this was first announced last year or possibly the year before, I talked about it, but we didn't have much detail on it. So today I will be reading an article from Blex Media. These are one of my faves, but I hardly ever feature them on the channel because they are hardly in the royal thing. So today we finally have my worlds collide. This article is titled Tracy Oliver to adapt Jasmine Gilroy's, The Wedding Date with Meghan, the Duchess of Sussex, and Prince Harry, the Duke of Sussex, producing. Now, I may have said executive producing earlier by accident. Let's find out if that was accurate, but it might not have been. So if not, I'm going to correct it. Netflix has announced that Tracy Oliver, the screenwriter behind Girls Trip and Harlem, is set to adapt The Wedding Date, the New York Times bestselling novel by Jasmine Gilroy. The project will be produced by Meghan, the Duchess of Sussex, and Prince Harry, the Duke of Sussex, through their Archewell banner alongside Tracy Ryerson. I also want to point out something. If you've never seen Harlem, you are missing out. Girls Trip was good. I wasn't a big fan of everybody in that movie. I just felt like some of it was so over the top that made it almost unenjoyable at times. But the movie itself was just really, really good. The rest of the cast was amazing. But on top of that, Harlem is one of my favorite shows, and it still kills me that it went off the air. So she is a great writer. I cannot wait to see what she does with The Wedding Date. But also, I've never read The Wedding Date. So now that I know Archewell is attached to it and that it's becoming a movie, I am going to read it. And if you guys want me to recap that for a royal review, let me know. The Wedding Date follows a career-focused political strategist who unexpectedly finds herself posing as a stranger's wedding date after a chance elevator encounter. Though she had long stopped believing in love, the story explores how romance can arrive when least expected. Gilroy's novel, the first in her Wedding Date series, was originally published in January of 2018. That sounds like a really good story. Oliver rose to prominence with 2017's Girls Trip, becoming the first Black woman to write a film that grossed over $100 million worldwide. I can believe it. That was a really funny movie. Since then, she has written films including Little, The Sun is Also a Star, and oh my God, the horror comedy The Blackening. Oh, this woman has a career. I love every last one of those, especially The Blackening. I saw it in theaters 4 times. It is so freaking funny. It has no business being that funny. Okay, let's continue. On television, Oliver created and executive produces Amazon's Harlem and the First Wives Club series, while also developing multiple projects in film and TV, including the thrillers Paper Gods and Not a Happy Family, as well as sequels Girls Trip 2 and The Blackening 2. Oh, wait. Did we get a Girls Trip 2 and a Blackening 2? Is that yet to happen? Oh my gosh, I hope so. I want to see it. She is also developing the holiday film Deck the Yalls, starring Octavia Spencer and Jessica Chastain. Oh, I love both of them. Deck the Yalls. If this is in Texas, I know Texas isn't the only place that says y'alls, but since so many people, when they talk about Texas, they mock the accent and they go, y'all, I get a little peeved. So I wonder where that's going to be located. Archewell, in partnership with Netflix since 2020, recently extended its multi-year first look deal with the streamer. The collaboration has produced a wide range of content, including documentaries, scripted series, films, sports programming, and lifestyle projects. Notable releases include Polo, With Love Meghan, Heart of Invictus, Harry and Meghan, and Live to Lead. Y'all know Live to Lead is my thing. one of my favorites. Archewell's upcoming slate features the romance adaptation Meet Me at the Lake, based on Carly Fortune's bestseller, and Netflix specials such as With Love Meghan, Holiday Celebration, and the documentary short Masaka Kids, A Rhythm Within. Meghan has also partnered with Netflix on the lifestyle brand As Ever, and both she and Prince Harry are executive producers on the Sundance-bound documentary Cookie Queens. First of all, I know all that, but when you hear it all like packed in together like that, when you hear it all listed like that, they have been working their asses off. And this is not even them slowing down with their philanthropy work. My goodness gracious, how do they have the time in the day? Anyway, I'm excited for the wedding date. Are y'all? It sounds like the Archewell Productions is producing, not executive producing. So I need to make that distinction. So I don't know who the executive producer is on this, but Archewell Productions is producing the content. So I have to correct that because I accidentally said it incorrectly earlier. But anyway, I'm excited to see this and I can't wait until we get more details. But have you guys read The Wedding Date? I am definitely going to read it. If you want me to recap it, I'll let you know, or let me know and I will do so as a royal review. I just finished Nobody's Girl. That's been the latest royal review. And I've got to be honest, this week was a rough week having finished that book. The end was a lot. And so I am looking to recap something more upbeat and kind of just will offer me a little bit more fun and kind of more relaxed. That story definitely needed to be told and definitely needed to be discussed. So I was happy to be able to do so. But I am looking forward to getting into a little bit lighter content. So if you have anything royal related that I should recap next for our royal review, let me know. Anyway, have you guys read The Wedding Date? If so, what do you think of the book? And if you'd like me to recap it, let me know. Thank you so much for watching the SharionSade YouTube channel. I appreciate you watching my content. If you haven't already, please don't forget to go ahead and like this video by hitting the thumbs up. Please don't forget to subscribe by hitting the subscribe button. And don't forget to comment along the way. If you feel so inclined, please don't forget to share so that more people can find us. Once again, thank you so much for watching. Now let's get back to the video. So I have sufficiently talked y'all's ears off. I am looking forward to getting into the comments to hear your opinions. Thank you so much for watching. If you have not already, please don't forget to go ahead and like this video, subscribe to the channel, and feel free to share so that more people can find us. Part 4 of Nobody's Girl recap and the final recap of Nobody's Girl will be available on Patreon and on the member side of YouTube on Monday. I have already recapped it, but I needed a break after I recorded my recap because I couldn't edit it. It was just so much. And so I will be editing and posting over the weekend so you guys can watch that on Monday. But I am looking forward to hearing your comments regarding today's topic. A lone apology to Doria Ragland and Meghan Sussex, and then Prince Harry and Aspen, and lastly, The Wedding Date, which will be produced by Archewell Productions. Y'all let me know your thoughts. That's all I have. Thanks for watching, and I will see y'all next time.